what up YouTube? Is this your boy the Visionary? Welcome to another episode of Fireside Chats. Today's episode is going to be a continuation of the other series I have titled Syrian Civil War and the Steps to World War III. This is basically an update on what's going on as far as the Syrian Civil War and the involvement of the Western powers as far as trying to resolve what's going on. Now, recently a friend just brought this to my attention. He gave me the article and I was reading it myself. In the last video, I talked about how the United States, or the White House, Congress and Senate were working on some type of bill to basically sit down with Assad and work on a treaty to basically, end the supposed, civil war that's going on in the country, and more or less realistically to basically hammer out an agreement to say that the use of chemical weapons is specifically banned within the country. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you can't use it by international law. This chemical weapons use is banned by both sides, and therefore you cannot use it. And, like I said before, to me it's just putting him in between a rock and a hard place. You know what I mean? It's basically a no-win situation, because then if he signs it, he's basically admitting, yes, I use chemical weapons, and then if he doesn't write it, in 45 days, the U.S. is just going to go in, both guns blazing. So the latest development is that Kerry, who, by the way, his bungling of this entire process has been most spectacular, you know what I mean? Because Obama going into it, when he basically put his foot down, and he said, I'm going to do the George Bush approach and like Wild West it up and be like, yo, I'm gonna put my foot down and these motherfuckers is gonna, listen to me and yada yada, and we're gonna, stage this attack against Syria because they're using weapons of mass destruction for human, and we're gonna, go in because of humanitarian aid bullshit, whatever it is. Kerry, and the person who's always in his position, is always supposed to get, a coalition of the willing ready. He was always supposed to, use that diplomacy to get people on board before before the president says, you know what, I'm going to put my foot down, and he puts himself in that position where it's like, okay, so, you don't have international coalition of the willing, you don't have any support from the outside, you don't have Congress and Senate support on going to war, and most of them are voting against it. You just put yourself in a rock and a hard place. You really look like an idiot. And part of the blame falls on Kerry, because he could not get Britain into that shit. France was kind of into it, but they were kind of iffy about the shit. He could not get the UK, because the UK themselves said, fuck you, Cameron. We don't agree with your estimates of what the fuck is going on over there. Leave them alone. The people haven't done anything to us. Germany was basically on the sidelines, like they were just waiting to see what the fuck's happening. So the general gist is, everyone's like, no, this is unjust, leave them the fuck alone. Assad, you haven't showed us any evidence that Assad has been using weapons, yada yada yada. So Kerry, out of the side of his mouth, is like, yo, on the international scene, he's like, yo, we have an ultimatum. Listen, Syria, we think, in order for you to like avoid us coming in and handling the situation, you're gonna have to, reprimand your, your chemical weapons to international control. Which on the side, I don't agree with that. International control, people need to understand that NWO shit, the UN, NATO, that world government, that is the world government. That's basically what it is. When you hear someone says international control, that's world government control. That's basically what the fuck that is. The United Nations, the UN troops, that's the world army. You know what I mean? So be very careful when you hear shit like that. We say international control, period. So going back to the story. So he says, yo, listen, in order for you to avoid us coming in and dealing with you, what you're going to have to do is, have to give up and reprimand your weapons to international control. So everyone is like, the international community is like, okay, this sounds interesting. Where you going to go with this, blah, blah, blah. So he said this offhand, and he had a different intention behind saying it. So randomly, out of nowhere, Russia pops up and he's like, all right, cool. You know what? Sure, this is what we're going to do. We're going to write up an agreement with Syria, and we're going to go in, and we're going to dismantle their shit. We're going to go in and dismantle their chemical weapons, blah, 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 blah. So, give and take that. Russia is part of the international community because they are part of NATO, and they are part of the UN. They're part of, I think they're one of the Big 7 or Big 8 that's permanently part of the UN nations and all that shit. So Russia comes out of nowhere, and he takes the bull by the horns. He takes the idea, and he basically goes, yo, I'm going in, and we're gonna, like, dismantle the weapons and shit. Syria's like, alright, cool, yo, sure, you can come in, yo, you are boys, you want outside, sure, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Kerry is like, oh, fucking shit, I did not mean that, I really meant the international community. So that put a big fat fucking cork in, I would say, in the White House's plans on actually topping Syria. You know what I mean? Because, number one, Russia took the initiative away from the U.S. Number two, let's say Russia does go in and they dismantle their weapons, there's no more pretext, there's no provocation for them to actually go in and start some shit. Why? Because it's just a general civil war. One group is fighting another, and there's no reason for you to get involved more than you already are, period. Besides all, giving them the weapons and all that shit, and yada, 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 period. So it's a general, regular proxy war between Russia and the United States, and that's pretty much it, period. I thought that was a brilliant move by, Putin and all that shit. I think a lot of lives were saved because of that, and I think Kerry inadvertently fell on a solution. It might not have been the solution that he wanted, but it was a solution that saved the most lives. Alright, so that's pretty much the update for now. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next one that's coming soon. Peace.